welcome to Real. I am Haley, your host, and today we are going to talk about Christian women and work life balance. This is something that has been a struggle of mine for so long. Um, Today is the first day that I am recording with also video. This should be an interesting experience. I have my laptop set up to record video while I speak. I do not know if this is going to go well. It could be disaster, but we're going to try. So we shall see. So work life balance. I feel like it wasn't as bad until I had children. And when children came along, that definitely changed things for me. Life felt easier before kids. It seems like when you throw children into the mix, balance can tend to get a lot worse. Uh, so, anyway, I wanted to talk to you all about when we're talking about work life balance, October theory. This was something that I found out about. I don't know. I was watching maybe Good Morning America the other day, and they were discussing October theory, and I had never heard of it. What I'm seeing online is that it's a viral TikTok hypothesis. And October theory to me, it just seemed like from what I heard was kind of like New Year's resolutions, but in October. Like it's a time to reset, like it's the fall, things are changing. It's a good time to look at your life and your priorities and your goals and, consider all of that. I mean, I'm all for looking at goals and priorities and planners, and that's just kind of me. So I'm all about October theory. So I kind of think I'm going to participate in that at least a little bit. But it kind of went along with this work life balance. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit about my life. Um, as things have changed, as seasons have changed, as I've gotten older, and how work life balance has impacted me. Um, Like I said, when kids came along, it became more difficult. We have 3 kiddos. My daughter is 18 now. My son is almost 17, and my other son is 13. So, the first 2 are only 13 months apart. It was almost like having twins. As soon as one got done with a stage, the other started that thing. So it was difficult. It was a difficult season. So how do we achieve work life balance? I'm here to tell you that it is hard. Um, I have tried so many things. We talk about women who are stay at home moms. You talk about women who are work at home moms. And there are women who are working mothers. And work life balance is hard in any of those situations. Even if you are a stay at home mom, you still have that work at home. I was a stay at home mom for a couple years, I would say. And I would venture to say that I worked physically harder during that time period than I have ever worked working, like a public job, because it is a physical job. You typically have small children. It's a lot of bending over, it's a lot of cleaning, it's a lot of cooking. It's and you typically don't have as much money when you're staying at home because you're living off of one income usually. And it's a really hard thing to do. And I feel like work life balance there comes in like you put everything you have into your family and you have no me time usually. Getting me time is very difficult. And when I was a stay at home mom, we didn't have the money for me to have me time. Like if I wanted to, even just like go get a McDonald's coffee and a massage or something. I mean, that costs money and that really wasn't in our budget. So that balance being a stay at home mom is tough. Okay. Uh, and then a working mother. So I have been a working mother probably the longest part of my life when my oldest 2, I'd say I worked for a couple years. I stayed home for a couple years, and then I went back to school and finished my master's degree and then was working again. So the majority of their childhood, they remember me being a working mom. And I always had some guilt associated with working. I felt like I wasn't the mom I should be if I wasn't staying home. What I realize now is that it takes everybody, guys. This economy that we have now is not the same economy that our parents or our grandparents grew up in. There are lots of women who stay home now, and I am super impressed with those women in every way, especially when it comes to budgeting effectively to be able to stay home because it is so difficult in today's economy. And so for us, me working was a good thing in that it contributed to the income, but I also ended up needing some mental stimulation, I guess you would say, in the form of adults eventually. I enjoyed my time at home, but I do feel like I probably was a better working mom than I was a stay at home mom. But anyway, work life balance being a working mom can also be super difficult because I remember, the hours that you work. What hours do you work? Do you work 7 to 3? That's awesome. Do you work on a school calendar? That can usually be a really good thing. I have a lot of teachers in my life. My husband was a teacher at one point. My mother is a teacher. My sister is a teacher. I have lots of teachers in my life. So, and actually growing up, my mom was a teacher. And so we were fortunate in that she was, when we weren't in school, we had her. So that was always a good thing. So that's a good work life balance, I think. But depending on your hours, it's going to depend on, that work life balance. As a nurse practitioner, I at one point worked 3 12-hour shifts, sometimes 4 12-hour shifts in a week. That's hard when you go to work at 7 a.m. and you get home at 7 p.m. It's dark when you leave, it's dark when you get home. That can be difficult as well. I've also done the working from home, and there are pros and cons to working from home. I will say that I love it. I've been doing it now for a couple years and it definitely suits me. It's probably my favorite thing to do of all the things I've done. You do have to have some boundaries in that you can get easily distracted at home. Um, you can actually end up working all the time, or you can not do your job effectively. So, it does require some focus and some self-discipline, but it is by far my favorite because it allows me to put in a load of laundry from time to time. It allows me to load the dishwasher from time to time. It allows me to, in between work tasks, I can occasionally get something small done at home. I just like it. And it's not for everybody. I've heard people say, I can never work from home, and that's okay. Everybody's different. But work life balance is something that I struggle with daily, and I always have. And something that has helped me along the way is to keep my priorities in order. And, I can say that all day long, but that does not mean that I do it all the time because I don't. I try really, really hard to keep that in mind, but we are human. We have selfish desires and we tend to want ourself, whatever our selfish desires are, that's what we're drawn to. That's what we want to do. So I do have a difficult time with that. I constantly try to be more self-disciplined. But priority wise, trying to keep God, spirituality, my relationship with Jesus ahead of everything, and then others, and then self. So, in that, I feel like as long as I'm keeping those things in order, everything will fall into place. But there are times you'll say, like, okay, I'm a mom with 3 children, and I would love to be able to study my Bible more often, but when do I do it? It's hard to make the time to do those things, and it's easy for me especially to be like, For example, I did good today and yesterday. I got up at 5 a.m. yesterday. I got up at 5:30 this morning. Typically, the house is quiet, nobody's up. And it's a time that I have this quiet that's all to me. Nobody's pulling at me, nobody's asking me for something, nobody is wanting me for a task. It's some time that I can actually focus. So that is a time when I can read my Bible, when I can pray. But I'll say when my kids were little, it was different. I was exhausted all the time. And there were lots of days that I didn't have that time. I didn't make that time because it seemed nearly impossible. But when my priorities are in order, my mental clarity is better. I feel better about life. I feel better about what I'm doing. Another thing that I struggle with, but is good advice, is don't try to take on too much. When you take on too much, you feel like you never have balance. And that is one of my biggest downfalls. And it's taken me a while to admit that, but I'm finally realizing it. And I'll talk a little bit about my planner here in a little bit. But this planner is actually what has made me realize that I try to bite off more than I can chew. And it causes me to continually feel defeated because I'm not meeting these goals. But really, my goals are too big. They're bigger than what I can accomplish in the amount of time that I want to accomplish them in. Okay. So don't try to take on too much. Another thing, ladies, this is a hard one. Don't compare. Comparison is a thief of joy. And again, I'm one of the world's worst. I will tell you, lately, I have been limiting my time on social media. I have been trying to tell myself, do not pull up Facebook. Do not pull up Instagram. You get sucked in. You immediately start comparing yourself to others. I know you all know this, but what do we put on social media? What is it that we typically, when you feel like posting something, what is it you're going to post? It's like a really good moment. It's like an accomplishment. It's a vacation. We went out to eat and we got ice cream, or it's the happy, fun stuff that you want other people to know about. But when we continually bombard our brains with those things over and over and over again in other people's lives, when we're scrolling and we're looking through these things, we're comparing ourselves to others and it's unrealistic, right? It's unrealistic because those people are putting a moment in time on their profile, on their feed, whatever. It is not indicative of their life, their whole day, their whole week, their whole month, right? And if you were to go back and look at your social media feed, you would probably see a lot of happy events. And that's not everybody, but you would see a lot of highlights, I would say. And so comparison is a thief of joy. And I think social media is one of the worst things when it comes to women comparing themselves to others. So beware of that. It does help me a lot when I limit my time, but it's hard. Like when I've had a busy day, when I'm just like, my brain is tired, my body is tired, I don't want to think. I just want mindless activity, right? What do? I pick up my phone, I pop on Facebook, and I just start scrolling, or I start Instagram reels or whatever. And it's just mindless activity that's entertaining sometimes. But before you know it, it has been 30 minutes, 45 minutes. And when I get off of that, most of the time I feel worse because of what I have listened to, what I have seen. It's been bad news, it's been comparison. So just that's kind of an aside on social media. So, another thing, I talked about this, use a planner for work life balance. I think I have found finally, after trying who knows how many planners throughout my life, I have tried so many different planners. Um, I think that I like this one. It is called hang on, I got to grab it. It is called the Legend Planner Pro Weekly. And they have it on Amazon. That's where I got mine. And I don't think it was that expensive. I want to say it was like 25 or 26 something. For planners, that's not that bad. I have spent 50, 75, $100 on a planner before, and this one I love. So, the reason I love this planner is because if you fill it out the appropriate way, it guides you through goal setting and breaking it down into appropriate steps. So it starts out by my dreams, and it has 100 different things that you can write on a bucket list. So you just fill that out, right? And I bought pretty pens and highlighters and made mine all colorful. That makes me feel better. And then it has a thing with awareness and self discovery where you're asked questions about what brings me joy, what would I do if money wasn't an issue, what am I good at, what qualities do I admire most in others, what qualities do others admire in me, what are my top achievements in life, what is most important in my life, if I had 6 months to live, what would I do? So it's just these questions that really make you dig deep and think about what you want out of life and what's important to you. And then it starts on my journey, and it breaks into categories of health and fitness, personal development, career and business, financial, romantic relationship, let's see, family and friends, quality of life. And I think that's it. Spiritual. Did I say spiritual? Um, and then so you put down my current situation for each of those. And then you put down my vision, why I want it, and my strategy. Okay. And then, so that's for what, 8 different categories? You do that. Then you write out your vision, you write out your mission. I know this seems like a lot, and it did take me a while to fill it all out, guys. It took me like a week or so of coming back and forth to it, but it's worth it in the long run. Okay. And then you break it down into your goals based on each of those categories. You set certain goals for yourself. And of those goals, you pick your most important 1 year goals, and you have 5 of them. And then you start breaking those down into why I want it, and if I achieve it, what reward will I get? And it breaks down into 3-month goals. And so it helps you break your goals into smaller bite-sized pieces. Instead of me, I tend to say, I want to have all my debt paid off in a year. Okay. Probably not attainable. But I think in my brain at that moment that it is. But then when I don't get it done month to month, I think I'm a failure. I can't do this. And honestly, in the long run, it hurts because I usually will give up at some point, right? So, my favorite planner, the Legend Planner Pro Weekly, if I can remember, I will put in the show details a link to Amazon or where you can find it. Again, I don't get anything from that. I just want you guys to be able to see that planner. It comes in a lot of different colors. I got the black one. I couldn't decide. I got the black one. So, let's talk about some Bible verses related to this topic. All right. The first is Proverbs 21:5. And I'm going to turn there now. It says, the plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance, but everyone who is hasty comes only to poverty. Read that again. The plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance, but everyone who is hasty comes only to poverty. That is an important verse for me because planning and being diligent lead to abundance. Planning and being diligent, willing to work for it, leads to abundance. But everyone who is hasty, you want it right now, comes only to poverty. So that makes me think about these get rich quick things. Very, very rare. Very rare. Slow and steady wins the race. All right. And then Jeremiah 29:11. Know who is in control. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future. So knowing that God is in control when we are struggling with balance in our lives is helpful to ground us. It helps me when I step back and I think, if I feel very overwhelmed and I go, Haley, what does this matter right now? Really, like if the Lord were to come back right now, would you care about this? Just take a moment, take a step back and think the Lord has this, right? Ecclesiastes 4, verses 5 through 6. Fools fold their hands and ruin themselves. Better one handful with tranquility than two handfuls with toil and chasing after the wind. And this can kind of address the tension between working too little and working too much. So it's that balance that we need, right? So as we come to a close of the podcast, I always want to include my listeners in my prayers. And this morning, when I was thinking about this podcast, I thought, what can I pray about for you related to work life balance? And my prayer for you is that you can prioritize effectively and clearly know where to place your focus, that you can have peace and tranquility regarding your choices, and that you don't compare yourself to other women. You and your situation are unique to others. Okay. My situation is different than your situation, is different than your neighbor's situation, is different than your best friend's situation. So you're not always comparing apples to apples. Okay. You are usually not. Work life balance is one of those topics that's just so broad. It's almost too difficult to handle in one podcast. So and we will touch on this again, we'll probably break it down into much smaller chunks. But I kind of wanted you all just to know that it's something that I've always struggled with, work life balance, and I feel like I will struggle with it until the day I die. Or until the day I retire. I probably still struggle with it then because if I have heard retired people say, I've never been more busy than after I retired. So I feel like there's always something to do, it feels like. And we're always going to have to prioritize and have to make sure that we have our priorities in the right order. I think that's part of the secret to handling work-life balance. So thank you all so much for listening. And um, if I can do anything to help you in any way, please let me know. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast. And if you get a chance, leave a review. Hope you all have a great rest of your week.